Hello everybody, Giselle Grenier here from artplace.ca. In today's video lesson, we're going to be creating some miniature art and using some random stencil to create a little piece of art. So ideally, if you have a stencil that you're not sure what to do with, or something that, let's say, was gifted to you that isn't really with your style, we're going to figure out how you can use it into a really simple little piece of miniature art that you can either give to somebody to make them smile, or put it on the face of a greeting card, or really do anything just to make someone smile. And I have a visitor this morning. I don't know if you can see her shadow right here. Chaos is here. She can be anywhere in the house, but the minute I turn on my studio lights and flip on that camera, it's that bling bling on the camera, she comes running up. So hopefully she'll be good. So I have a little piece of just cardstock. This is just taken. There she goes. Bye, Chaos. Little piece of cardstock from packaging, and what I did on one side, I prepped it with gesso. I'm going to show you how to do it on the other side as well. And I have other little piece to show you what we're going to be looking at. So if you don't have anything like this, take a piece of an art journal page or some other type of artwork that you created and just upcycle to something else. All this is a piece of random scrapbook paper that came with a binder. Not a fan of the paper. And what I did, I used the other side, I prepped it with gesso, and then I created some I think this was some dendritic printing or some, I don't know. I printed something, maybe some jelly prints, and just glued it onto this paper. Glued on some strips of paper, you know, there, it's ready to go nice and thick. So we're going to do something like that. And the stencil that I got, so I've got this little stencil. It's cute, but I really didn't know what to do with it. It's the Andy Skinner Mixed Media stencils called Children. And this comes with, as a two-piece, it comes with a mask and a stencil, so you can pop these pieces out to create a mask. So we're going to be using this little one right here. Okay, it'll fit quite nicely. And I've got a piece of dictionary paper. You can use any paper. Grab newspaper. It doesn't matter. It's just to create a slight impression in the background. And colors, I'm going to be working with part of my extended palette. So I'm going to be using the DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylics, Phthalo Blue, Ultramarine Blue, Quinacridone Magenta, Burnt Sienna, Burnt Umber, and Titanium White. And for brushes, everything I actually use will be listed in the supply list on my blog, so you don't need to take notes. My number 8 Bristle Bright soft grip to put the gesso on. I've got a 3/4 inch and a 1/2 inch, no, 3/4 inch, and a 1/2 inch glaze, a number 10 shader. I've got a little Majestic mop brush. I've got a couple of stencil brushes here. I'm not going to need this one. And a pouncer to finish off the edges, and the palette knife. So let's get started. So I'm going to take my gesso, and all I want to do is take my bristle brush, and I'm just going to put this on here. And what this is going to do is create a surface that will hold paint. Now for cardboard, this is nice because you're putting this on, the gesso is thick enough and it's not going to just make the paper swell, but what's going to happen is that it's going to create, first of all, it's priming the paper, and then it's going to create a barrier so the paint doesn't seep into the paper and then take forever to dry and make it all warp and stuff like that. The gesso is really nice. And if you don't have any titanium white acrylic paint, you can use gesso as well. It has a nice tooth, stuff sticks to it. And this is especially important as well in if you're using cardboard packaging that has the printed side, the shiny side, you need to gesso that, otherwise everything's going to slip right off that. And you notice I didn't add water to it because it's that way it won't be too thin. And you see how I'm putting it on? I'm just patting that around, and what it's doing is also creating some texture. There we go. If you want it flat, you can do that. I want some texture on it. And I'm going to dry this with the heat gun. And on the other side, I'll be putting whether I'll put a printed piece of rice paper or something, I'll glue it to the back, which has my name and stuff like that on it. Okay, so now I'm going to dry this with the heat gun. Now we're going to take our matte medium. This is the DecoArt. Oh, I forgot to tell you, this is the DecoArt Media as well, the white gesso and the matte medium. And I'm going to use my 3/4 inch brush, and I'm just going to apply a layer on here. Putting it all over the card. Actually, should have had these prepared strips ahead of time. And just take a few, you know, you don't need to be fancy about it. Just put some pieces of strips of paper on there. Again, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It'll be, a lot of this will be hidden in the background. It's just to create a little bit of interest. You can put, you know, scrapbook paper, anything you want, doesn't matter. And what you can also do, if you want to create a little bit of extra strength, you can also wrap the paper around, and you can paper the back as well. That is completely your choice. I like putting paper on the back because when I put the rice paper on top, it's translucent. Or if you tissue, you can do that with tissue. Okay, so you can just do as much as you want. Yeah, have your strips torn ahead of time. Don't do it like I am. Don't do it like I am. Okay, just something like that. This is so easy. All right, so then you can put it aside to dry like that, or you can just get it going with the heat gun. Just make sure that the matte medium is dry. This will only take a couple of minutes. All right, so we're going to take a little brush, and now this is we have to do this all wet on wet, so we don't want it to dry. And we're going to start in the middle, so it doesn't really matter where, but right about in the middle here. We're going to work with white, then we're going to take a little bit on dirty brush, then take a little bit of Quinacridone Magenta and work outwards, and take a little bit of Ultramarine blue and work outwards, and a little bit of Phthalo blue and work outwards, all on the dirty brush. We may come back and pick up a little bit of white, but ideally it's almost going to be like a burst coming out, and then we're going to place the stencil, and just you can see where the little feet are. So just a little bit above that, right about here, we're just going to work a horizontal line to create a ground for them. Then we're going to create a vignetted edge. Okay. So I'm using this on a dry brush, and just going to come in and just going to get it started with a thin layer of white. Oops. I'm going to come in a little bit more white, speck of Quinacridone Magenta, and just going to put a little bit of that in there. I want a little bit stronger than that. There we go. And keep it rough. Don't work it too smooth. Now that's a bit too much, so what I can do is I can take another brush with white and just come back in the middle and just pounce it. Okay, this is so simple. Now watch these brushes so the paint doesn't dry inside. Just going to wipe the excess off, take a bit more white, and then I'm going to take a speck of Ultramarine blue, and now you're going to do the same thing. Go overlap, and where the blue touches the Quinacridone Magenta, it's going to turn slightly purple. Okay, take that other brush and just going to fluff what's in the middle. We're going to go out, then we're going to come back in. Take a bit more white, come in here, fade that out. A little bit of Quinacridone Magenta, come out here. And just kind of feather that. Okay, then take that brush again. Now a tiny speck of phthalo blue, very, very strong. And now we're just going to touch where the colors mix. We're not going to totally overlap that. Need more white because the paint's starting to dry. You want to make sure you can still see a little bit of the text underneath. Out in. You can see some of that texture showing through now with the gesso how in the paper. It's really pretty. All right, so I can use the same brush actually. No, I'm not. I'm going to change the brush. Look at that. I'm working so fast so the paint doesn't dry. And I always do this. I always make a mess. Go back into some white. I'm going to come right back in here. A bit of Quinacridone Magenta. Come back here. And where I'm putting this paint, I'm not going over the same spot over and over and over again. I'm going to go back into a little bit of Ultramarine blue. Come back. And you may not have to work as fast with drying time. I am because of the studio lights. And now go back with a little bit more phthalo blue. And you're just going to do this step until it's as dark as you want. Don't worry too much about this side. We're going to be creating a very dark edge on that. I'm working out in. Now, if you've got a bit too much paint, take your mop brush and you can just dust it, almost like putting like powder on your face, but just round and round and round, and you're just touching the surface and it's just picking up all the excess paint. The minute you do this, put this in water so it doesn't dry out. So now that that's done, I'm going to hit that with the heat gun for a second. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to clean our brush really, really well. And ideally, I want to try to get rid of as much white as possible in the brush. And we're going to create a vignette around here. Now, to create the vignette, you're going to take either whatever blue or the red, and you're going to add brown to it to make it opaque. So the idea is I'm going to create that vignette around here, and then I'm going to create a more transparent horizontal line here. So for that transparent horizontal line, I'm going to take a little bit of white. And I know I just said to get all the white out of the brush, and I just want to create a little bit of a path like that there. And I'm just going to place, yeah, so something like that, just to get that placed in there. I'm going to take the whatever's in the brush, the white, and I'm just going to put that in there. I'm going to take that mop brush, and I'm just going to soften that. Just removes the excess paint. You can also use your fingers to soften that if you want. You can take your brush and you can go into circles like this, and take your fingers. There's so many different ways, because we have that matte medium on there, that you really have, you can use a paper towel, you can use whatever you want. You just want to get that, there we go, that bright glow right in here. Okay, use your finger and go round and round. It's just to create a nice little piece of light right there. Okay, wipe the brush, and to create that horizontal line, I'm going to take a little bit of ultramarine blue, a bit of burnt sienna. It's going to be more ultramarine blue and a little bit of white. And we're going to have almost like a Payne's gray, and I'm just going to touch in here, and I'm just going to touch the edges. I'm going to take a bit more ultramarine blue, and I'm just going to put just some lines like this, a little bit in between, just to break that up a little bit. wipe that up. Now I'm going to dry this because when I come in with the chromatic black, which is a phthalo blue and burnt umber, I don't want it to be transparent. I want it to be a little bit more opaque. So I'm going to dry this to dry the white. And now I'm going to take the, actually you can even do this with a stencil brush, you know that? Let me do that with a stencil brush. And I'll have to get another one. Let me get it, oops, sorry you guys. Oh, let's just take this one here. I'm going to take this just oval one. Dry, you're going to use it dry, and let's make up the paint. So a little bit of phthalo blue, and start off with equal parts of burnt umber. The burnt umber is opaque, so we'll make a nice color. And then we've got swatch paper, extra little strips of paper, and I use that to test the color, the true underlying color. Get a brush. It's a bit clunky with the palette knife. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Makes more. It's a gray, and I'm going to take the. You just want, and if you go into a little bit of phthalo blue right on the brush, you're going to get some variation. A little bit of burnt umber. Now, if you don't have phthalo blue or burnt umber, you can use black. I'm not a fan of using black. Then just start off with the outside edge. Work it in. It's important that your stencil brush be dry. And when I work that in, I'm going to come in about 3 millimeters. And natural brushes shed, so don't worry about that. Because when at the end, I'm going to be doing I'm going to be putting some wax metallic finish on the edges. And this brush is shedding like crazy because it's new. Now I'm going to have to make up some more paint, so I'm going to take a little bit more phthalo blue, a little bit of more burnt umber, and come in. And on this side I can be a little bit more generous. You can use a cosmetic sponge as well for this. Man, this brush is really shedding. This brush I obviously didn't wash before I bought it, or before I used it. And if you're not sure what color you're picking up, I know what the colors will do for me. Go onto a little piece of scrap paper. I like making my mixes up as I go because the colors are more fresh. Some areas might have a little bit more ultramarine or phthalo blue, some might have a little bit more burnt umber. Just don't use too much burnt umber. Okay, now as I work in, I'm going to come in a little bit more, and I'm just going to lighten the pressure a little bit to create that nice soft edge. Doing this with a Taklon brush, like these brushes here, is going to take you forever, and the brushes are going to get worn out a lot faster. Using a bristle brush is always better. They're less expensive as well. So now on this side here, I'm going to come in a little bit more. Holy moly, mother of God. This is really... See, create that nice dark edge. And this is easy. It's not hard, but it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of elbow grease. And the whole thing is because I want to be able to get it just right, create that nice effect. Oh, look at that. It cleans your unstick mat really, really well too. A bit more. Now this is a lot of paint because I went to a fresh load, so I'm going to tap a bit on the paper towel and come into the area where I want to make darker. I need to put a little bit more here. So you can just, skip ahead to where I start stenciling if you want, or just keep watching. Okay. So something like that. Oh, and I'm going to, oh, I forgot. Okay, I'm going to take another little brush, tiny little brush. Oops, burnt sienna. Let me try that again. Ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. More ultramarine blue. And all I'm going to do is just in here, and I'm just going to create a dark, almost looks like little bushes here. Not little bushes, just sets a ground. I'm just going to pad that. I just wanted it to be a little bit more of a purpley blue. It's subtle. It's very subtle. I'm going to put that stencil brush in the water. And now let me just dry this before we put the stencil on. And I'm going to go into, I can take the same phthalo blue with burnt umber. I can hit that with just a little bit of Quinacridone Magenta. So this makes up like a warm black. A bit more burnt umber. And the burnt umber adds the opacity. You can use carbon black if you want. I don't want to use black out of the tube or the bottle. You're just going to place that down right about there. And I'm just going to pounce that. I do want this to be solid, especially in the middle. Or I'm sorry, on the outside I want it to be solid. On the inside, if you leave it a little bit lighter, like less of an opaque finish, it looks like there's a glow on the edges. And I loaded the brush right with the paint. I didn't dampen the brush. I don't want the paint seeping inside and underneath. And we're out of paint. Let me just see if I can steal some of this one here. My fingers are going to get in the way. I can't avoid that. And normally I would go round and round, but there's a very delicate piece of stencil right here, and I don't want to get underneath it. This area here, you can go round and round. If you have your own favorite stenciling technique, use that. No problem at all. If your paint is like super fluid, pounce it off on a paper towel first to remove any excess. And take a little bit more ultramarine blue, a little bit more Quinacridone Magenta. That makes a beautiful purple. Burnt umber. Now, because I mixed using this brush, I'm going to pounce off on a paper towel. And just come back in for a second layer. With tiny little stencils like this, sometimes it's hard to lift off and take a look and see. You do not want to let the paint completely dry while the stencil's on there in case you peel up the paint. So what I would do from here is I would hold it down and take a look. Oh, that's beautiful. There we go. Isn't that gorgeous? Now I'm going to dry that. I'm going to take the metallic wax. This is the metallic Lustre Gold Rush. And you don't have to do this, but I like finishing off the edges a little bit. Just with a little bit of bling, especially for this one because it's got such a dark edge. And this takes a little bit of practice depending on where you want it, because you've got to put it on and then you have to buff it. And using the double-sided pouncer, it helps with this because you can buff and apply at the same time. So as I'm pushing in, the sponge is going around the card. I'm getting some nice pieces on the edge. Start slow and then you can increase the pressure. because if you put too much pressure on there, then you'll have to get some water on a brush or on a paper towel and try to wipe it off. And if this is your first time doing it, apply a layer of varnish on this first, or even matte medium, because then it's easier to clean off. And like I said, you don't have to do this. I just want to kind of frame it a little bit. And I can also take this now very lightly, go across, and it creates little streaky lines on the edge. Completely up to you. Make the art for you. Okay, when you have something that you like, I'm going to take the other side of the sponge and just use a little bit firmer pressure and go over. You can use a paper towel if you want, but the problem with paper towel is that the fibers rip off because there's so much texture on this. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. And this does wear out the sponges quite quickly, but you do get a nice buffed edge. You can use a J cloth as well, those kitchen cloths. These things here. Oh, seriously, come on. These things here, you can use those as well. Again, the fibers might get caught in the card, so do that really slow. And we're all set. Voila. Now, if you happen to forget to cap this, I've done this a couple of times. This is water soluble, so you can always add water to it to get it going again. There we go. So all I have to do on the back is I'm going to print off. I have a standard label. I'm going to print that off. Or you can even just put a little bit of white paint and just handwrite your name and whatever. But there you go. How cute is that? So this is a great little way to use a stencil that, let's say, you've been gifted or isn't quite your style. And also notice that there's little flecks of paint stuck on there because I didn't clean my table. And if you have some paint that it just isn't quite coming off, then just use a brush and put the paint back on. Yeah, so this is a great little way of using a stencil that you're not quite sure what to do with. You've been gifted, you found it on a clearance sale. Create a nice, soft background, vignette the edges, and then you're all set to go. So I'd love to hear what you think. So please comment below the video. Let me know what you think. Do you have any stencils that you're not quite sure what to do with? If you're still stuck even after watching this video, fire me off a picture of the stencil and I can give you some pointers, or you can share it in the private Facebook group. Links to both of those are at my website at artplace.ca. So I'll give you a hand with that. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and give me a thumbs up if you found this video enjoyable. Alrighty, you guys. So I'm going to clean up and get ready for my next project. So until I see you in the next video, stay inspired.